Hello S.T.E.A.M team! Welcome to a special episode today of S.T.E.A.M Team Tuesdays called Leprechaun Lab. My name is Kristen and I'm a programming assistant at the Penticton Public Library. Today I'll be showing you two awesome leprechaun themed activities in celebration of St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. We'll be starting with creating a foamy mini explosion of Leprechaun's toothpaste and then shaking up our very own delicious homemade leprechaun ice cream. Since we have these two super fun activities to cover, let's get right into it. First off, we are going to be making Leprechaun's toothpaste. If you were a leprechaun, what would you want to use to brush your teeth? I'm going to say I'd go with something green and foamy to get those pearly whites clean. As a note on this activity, some parts do require adult help as we're going to be using some hydrogen peroxide. And just to get this out of the way, this toothpaste is not edible and not to be used to brush your teeth with. It really only has a look of toothpaste, and it's for leprechauns only. So let's just toss this toothbrush away. But just before we get into it, let's talk about how this foamed up reaction is going to work. As you'll see, we are going to be creating two different mixtures and then combining those mixtures together to create the final result. Each of the two mixtures has a key ingredient. In the first mixture, it will be hydrogen peroxide, which is often used to help disinfect small cuts, scrapes, or burn, which is why many of us may have it lying around in our bathroom for such occasions. The key ingredient for the second mixture is active dry yeast. Active yeast is often used in bread making to help the bread rise while it's baking. And active yeast is actually a tiny living organism, tiny living organism which is alive just like a human, animal, plant, or fungus. Because it is alive, it contains something called enzymes. Enzymes are substances that are responsible for speeding up certain chemical reactions. So enzymes make chemical reactions happen or happen quicker. And one of the enzymes present in yeast just so happens to break down the structure of hydrogen peroxide. Now, hydrogen peroxide structure is actually very close to water. Water, you may know, is H2O, and hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. So it has an extra oxygen molecule. And the enzyme in yeast is able to break down hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen. For this experiment, we also add another simple yet critical component. Dish soap helps to trap some of the oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide after it is released, and in turn creates a big foamy solution as a result. To make Leprechaun's toothpaste, you will need a small glass container, such as an emptied salt shaker or spice jar. I'm going to be using this recycled glass yogurt container. Next, you'll need a baking dish. This is to place the container into where the reaction will happen for easy cleanup. Another glass container or bowl, as mentioned, hydrogen peroxide. 3% hydrogen peroxide, that is what I'm using today, and it works just fine. Then you will need some liquid dish soap, a few drops of it, green food coloring to give it its leprechaun St. Patrick's Day color. As also mentioned, you will need some active dry yeast. Specifically, you'll need about a 4th teaspoon. Then you will need 1/2 to 1 tablespoonful of warm water. And finally, some measuring cups and spoons, since we do want to be a little bit precise with our measurements for this one. Take the small glass container of your choice and place it inside the middle of the baking dish. Also, the reason we are using glass here and not plastic, for example, this experiment creates what is called an exothermic reaction, meaning when the two mixtures that we will be combining meet each other, they will release heat. Because of this, after all of the toothpaste ingredients have been combined, please do not touch the glass until you are sure that everything has cooled down. Step 2. This is where it's good to have an adult help you out, as we will be pouring the hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide can hurt your eyes and your skin if touched, so of course we want to avoid that. Please wash your hands or flush your eyes immediately if any contact with the hydrogen peroxide occurs. So have an adult measure out 2 tablespoonfuls of hydrogen peroxide and pour it into the container. Now, add a couple drops of green food coloring into the same container. Just a couple will do. And then a couple of drops of dish soap. The dish soap, as we said, will help to prolong this reaction, similarly to how it did in our fizzing ice video if you saw that last month. Step 3. In another separate bowl or container, you're going to combine a 1/4 teaspoon of the active dry yeast, so get that in there first, and then add about 1/2 tablespoon of warm water. So turn your tap on to make sure it gets nice and warm before you put it in there, and then mix these 2 ingredients well. You will see that the water becomes cloudy as it starts to dissolve the yeast. The yeast is now ready to create the chemical reaction with the hydrogen peroxide in the first glass container. Step 4. This reaction starts, it is going to happen quite quickly, so get ready for it. From the second container into the first container that contains the hydrogen peroxide, dish soap, and food coloring. 1, 2, 3, go! Look at that mixture foaming up. It almost looks like it's in slow motion at first. This right here is the dish soap capturing the released oxygen bubbles from the hydrogen peroxide. What do you think? Does it look like toothpaste to you? Either way, it's pretty awesome that we were able to create this mini explosion with only a few simple ingredients. And in case it's warm to the touch, let this mixture cool down for a bit, and then you can put all the dishes from the Leprechaun toothpaste in your sink and have an adult help you rinse them out or wash them as needed. And now for a quick remix suggestion. Have you ever heard of elephant toothpaste? So actually, this Leprechaun's toothpaste is based on the classic science experiment called elephant's toothpaste, which is basically the same hydrogen peroxide reaction with the yeast as well, but it's usually made in a larger container and with more of each ingredient so that it results in a much larger elephant-sized reaction, which looks like something that elephants could brush their teeth with. There are tons of recipes out there on how to do this, all very similar to what we did today. And so I invite you to check some of these out and give that elephant toothpaste a go, which is a fun science experiment you can enjoy any day of the year. Okay, so as noted, the Leprechaun toothpaste that we just made is not edible. However, our next activity is leprechaun ice cream. Who doesn't love an ice cream treat, and especially when you get to say that you made it yourself? All right, so now we're on to talking about the leprechaun ice cream. And how exactly does this almost instant ice cream work? Ice cream is typically made of partially frozen milk or cream to create a smooth and creamy texture that so many of us love. This leprechaun ice cream is quite similar with its main ingredients. We are going to combine the ice cream ingredients into a small bag and then place the smaller bag inside of a larger Ziploc bag, which will be filled with ice and salt to create a quick freeze. When salt is added to the ice, it's going to lower the ice's freezing point, meaning that the temperature would have to be much colder for it to freeze. Therefore, the ice is going to melt somewhat and also become much colder than it would be on its own. But the salt will also ensure that the ice cream ingredients don't completely freeze solid and create ice crystals, as they might if we just place the Ziploc bag into the freezer directly. The freezing point for water is 0 degrees Celsius. But adding the salt to the ice can create a mixture with a freezing point closer to -15 degrees Celsius or colder. Brr! Therefore, it's cold enough to be able to freeze our ice cream in 10 minutes or less. A real-world example of ice and salt would be in the winter times when salt is placed on the road to help prevent ice from forming. The temperature is going to have to be lower for the water on the roads to freeze. Instead, it's going to stay a more soft or slushy texture, as our ice cream will be. So let's talk about exactly what we will need to make this sweet green leprechaun ice cream. To make leprechaun ice cream, you will need one smaller Ziploc bag, such as this sandwich-sized Ziploc bag, one large gallon-sized Ziploc bag. Then you will need milk for the base of the ice cream, any variety. I'm using almond milk today, so it's totally possible to make a dairy-free version of this leprechaun ice cream. Next, you'll need 1 tablespoonful of sugar or any other sweetener that you'd like to use. I'm going to be using this powdered sugar as that's what I found in my pantry. Then you will need some vanilla extract, green food coloring to make it green, 8 to 10 cups of ice. I'm going to be using this bag of crushed ice just to keep it simpler today, but you can use crushed or cubed ice. To go along with the ice, salt, plain table salt, or any kind of salt you have at home will work just fine. Optionally, for decorating your ice cream once it's finished, you may want a box of Lucky Charms to be able to use those fun dehydrated marshmallows that it comes with. Some other ideas are chocolate coins, chocolate chips, sprinkles, or any kind of other candies, fruit, and any other toppings that you would like. Highly recommended to also have when making this is a pair of gloves. If you can get a thicker pair of winter gloves, that would be even better, as when we're shaking up the bag of ice and salt, it's going to be getting very cold on the fingers. You may also want some measuring cups and spoons, washed well after their previous use with our Leprechaun's toothpaste, then a bowl and spoon for enjoying your ice cream, and perhaps some music and your very best dance moves, and you will see why. Now let's get on to the steps. Step 1. First, it's time to prepare the base of our leprechaun ice cream, which is only 4 simple ingredients: milk, sugar, vanilla extract, and green food coloring. Take a small Ziploc bag and carefully fill it with half a cup of whichever milk you'd like to use. As mentioned, I'm using almond milk to keep it dairy-free. Whole milk may provide an even creamier experience, but just use whatever works for you and whatever you have in your fridge. Then also add about 1 tablespoonful of sugar or your sweetener of choice, depending how sweet you would like it to be, a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 2 to 3 drops of green food coloring. Then seal the top of the bag well so you don't lose any of your ice cream. Step 2. Let's prepare the ice and salt mixture now. Measure out about 8 to 10 cups of crushed or cubed ice into the large gallon-sized bag. Note, you can double bag this if you would like, which will help provide a barrier against how cold it will become, as well as some extra protection from the ice mixture escaping when we are shaking it around. As the first time I tried it, some of the pokey parts of the ice were creating little tears in the plastic bag and causing it to leak a little bit. On top of the ice, add 6 tablespoonfuls of salt. Then seal the top of the bag and give it a quick shake to mix up the salt and ice so they can begin their reaction together. Step 3. Now insert the first smaller bag into the larger bag of ice. It's best if the bag of ice cream ingredients can be fully surrounded by the ice and salt mixture, as this will help it to freeze faster. Step 4. Now this is where you want to put a pair of gloves on because it's time to shake it up. And I promise you, this does get cold, so you will want to protect your fingers. I highly recommend for this part turning on some joyful background music and to pull out all of your favorite dance moves as we shake around this bag of ice plus ice cream for 10 to 15 minutes or until the ice cream has become a soft solid. Maybe you can see how the ice is melting. Step 5. Once you have determined that your ice cream is the right texture, carefully remove the smaller bag from the ice mixture. turn on the cold water in your sink or in your tap and carefully and as quickly as possible so as not to melt your ice cream too much, rinse off the bag of ice cream ingredients, especially around the opening, so that it does not give a salty flavor to your ice cream. Step 6. Open the bag of ice cream and pour it out into a little bowl. Alright, so now it is decorating time. As I said, you can get creative with this and add any toppings that you think would be delicious, but today I'm going to go simply with some rainbow sprinkles, sliced banana for banana coins, and also a few of these dehydrated marshmallows. Look, we got a rainbow there, balloon, oh, and of course we need the leprechaun's hat. When you're done, have a taste and enjoy. Who knew these few simple ingredients could be so tasty? Oh, and one more thing, once you're all done, don't forget to go and brush your teeth with some real toothpaste. For a remix on this experiment, there are many variations of ice cream in a bag. So try out some different flavors. You can make plain vanilla, try adding some pureed strawberries, blueberries, or any other kind of fruit that you love, a little bit of cocoa powder to make it chocolatey. You could also try different kinds of milk to see how this affects the experiment and the final flavor and texture of your ice cream. Some recipes even call for heavy whipping cream, which would make the ice cream extra rich and creamy due to its higher fat and protein content. Today in Leprechaun Lab, we participated in 2 super fun green-themed science activities. Leprechaun's toothpaste, where we created a mini explosion with our chemical reaction of hydrogen peroxide and active yeast, and then some leprechaun ice cream in a bag while learning about ice and salt. So let me know which one of these was your favorite experiment in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon with more awesome activities. Bye, STEAM team, and happy St. Patrick's Day!